Hi everyone, thank you for tuning into today's GORE workshop. In this session I'm going to be showing you how to create some super quick and effective special effects makeup techniques, perfect for Halloween or if you just want to have some fun around the house during lockdown. For today's session you will need a variety of face paints, brushes, tools, sponges and additional special effects makeup products that you can purchase from www.redcarpeteffects.com. To start with, I'm going to be using the Mehron Bruise wheel. This is a cream-based paint, and I'm going to be using the lighter red shade. I'm going to be applying this using a small pencil brush. So you only need a small amount of this product, and all I'm going to do is firstly mark out the shape that I want for my cut. So I'm going to do a nice big graze along the cheek here. Once I'm happy with my shape, I'm just taking off any excess product from my brush onto a clean paper towel. And then I'm going to just blend out that red line so it looks more like an irritation scratch around the center point. So that by itself looks quite cool because it looks almost like a fresh scratch, but we want to make it look a little bit more open, more gory. So now I'm going to go in with a concealer. This is a Maybelline concealer. I'm going to be using a nice thin paintbrush to apply a nice thin line of concealer straight through the middle of the red. Always helps as well if the concealer is the same shade as your skin tone. Like so. So now it looks like we've got a nice cut inside and the red that we had on has got this irritation effect around the outside. So now from here I'm going to switch to using a red water-based face paint. I'm just using one from brand Snazaroo, but any type of water-activated red face paint is fine. I'm using the same brush that I used to apply my concealer, so it's a nice thin paintbrush, and I'm now going to try and apply a super thin red line through the center of my concealer. So you still want to see a light ring of concealer on the outside. So now we have this really cool 3D scar effect. This is just using paint or makeup. If we want to go the extra mile and make it look a little bit more gory, then we can add some fake blood, which is what I'm going to do now. So again, I'm sticking to using that really thin brush, and I'm just painting on a bit of fake blood just to give it a bit more of a realistic effect. Like so. So that is more of like a scratch effect, but you could easily do the same effect with a slightly bigger, more gruesome open wound as well. So that's the first look, and this is obviously just with face paints and just with makeup. So the next effect I'm going to be showing you is a little bit more realistic and then a little bit more gruesome. So for this look I'm going to be showing you how to create a cut again, but I'm going to be using a nose and scar wax to create the illusion of fake skin. So if you guys have been to any of my previous takepART workshops, you'll know that the product I use for this is the Nye Nose Scar Wax. This comes in different shades so it can match up to models or client's skin nice and easily. The shade I'm using today on Emmy is the shade Fair. So to help this product stick to the skin, we need some sort of skin adhesive. So I'm going to be using the Mehron Spirit Gum. And you just want to apply a small amount of this to the skin where you're planning to put your wax. So I'm just using a cotton bud and I'm just going to apply a small amount of the spirit gum to the forehead. So whenever I'm working with this wax, I always like to work on areas that are slightly harder, so the forehead is perfect. It's a lot easier to blend the wax onto harder surfaces like the forehead than it is on softer surfaces like the cheeks. Once my spirit gum is applied, You then want to tap the spirit gum to make it nice and tacky, and you should be able to feel your finger start to want to stick to the skin. That's when you know it's ready to go in with your wax. Whenever I'm doing a shape like a cut, I always like to mould my wax into the shape of a worm, so it's nice and long like this. Always be aware as well that you're not placing the wax or the glue too close to any hairlines. Keep it nice and far away from the brows and the hairline. Then all I'm going to do is take my wax and stick it down onto the spirit gum. So that spirit gum is going to keep that in place now and it's not going to move. So once you're happy with the placement of your wax, we need to start blending this down so it looks more like a realistic skin. So to help me do that, I'm going to be using some Vaseline, and I'm going to be using this on a spatula. So the Vaseline is going to make it a lot easier for me to blend down the wax edges. This wax can be quite sticky to work with, so that Vaseline just helps me get a smoother blend. If you don't have a spatula, you can use wooden sticks, that's absolutely fine. But to begin with, all you want to do is start slightly pinching down those edges. So you want to pinch down the outer edge of your wax. You can hold it in position if it makes it easier. You don't want any of that wiggly worm wax to lift off. So by pinching down those outer edges, we get a little bit of like a peak through the middle, so it looks almost like a valley. Once all your outer edges are nicely secured, this is when you can switch over to using your fingers. Make sure that you have Vaseline on those fingers and it will just help you smooth down those edges. So it gives you, again, much more of a realistic finish to the wax. You're getting rid of any pinch marks from the spatula and just keep blending that until you're happy with how it looks. So ideally this is how you want your wax to look right now. So it's nice and smoothly blended down into the natural skin, so it just looks like you've got a little bit of a bump on the head. So your wax at this point is going to be quite wet and quite sticky. So to get rid of that, so it makes it easier for you to paint and work with it, you want to just apply a thin layer of either baby powder or translucent powder. This is going to get rid of that shine and give you, again, much more of a realistic skin look. So just using a fluffy brush, ask your model or your client to close their eyes and just lightly start dabbing on a thin layer of that baby powder. You want to make sure that all of that wetness from the Vaseline and all the stickiness from the wax is completely coated, so it gives it a nice matte look, and then make sure you're dusting away any excess powders. So before we go in and start cutting into our wax, creating that cut shape, I'm going to go in and add a little bit of irritation using my Mehron bruise wheel again. So again, I'm just using a small amount of product and I'm using a fluffy brush and I'm just lightly sweeping on a little bit of colour through the centre of that cut. Again, by using less product, it's going to give it much more of a realistic effect. So you don't want to fully coat this red. We're looking for that irritated look. So just a light sweep of that colour. Like so. So now we can move on to the most fun bit of this look. We're going to take our spatula again, and I'm using the sharper, slightly more pointed side. Again, if you don't have a spatula, you can always use a wooden stick for this. The end of my spatula has got a tiny bit of Vaseline on there as well, just to help me create a cleaner cut through the wax. And you just want to start lightly printing through the centre of your wax. Keep going back in with a little bit more Vaseline on your spatula and slowly start working your way through and into that wax. Always work a little bit at a time, because if you try to go all the way through, you might end up pulling the whole thing off. So slowly but surely cutting your way through that wax. So once you've made your incision into the wax, you can then start pulling back the sides. This again is going to give you much more of a gory finish by really opening up the inside of that wound. So now we just need to finish off our wax cut by adding some paint detailing to give it much more of a realistic and gory look. So to start off with, I'm going in with some black face paint. Again, this is water activated paint, and I'm using a super fine paintbrush. And what I'm going to do with this is I want to try and fill the inside so it's touching the skin. So I'm just painting a very, very thin black line like so. And what this will do is it will give the effect of more of a deeper cut going into the forehead. And now on the insides of the wax, I'm going to paint this red. Once you finish painting, we can then go in with some fake blood to give it again even more of a realistic and really gory look. And there's the cut finished. So as you can see, the wax looks like it's just natural skin that has been cut into, and all that inside paintwork is giving us that realistic effect. So one of my favourite things about working with the nose and scar wax is you can pretty much make anything that you want with it. So now I'm going to show you how we do a bullet hole. So for this, it's going to be a similar technique to the cut, but instead of making your wax into a wiggly worm, we're going to be making it into a small ball like this instead. So I'm going to repeat those same steps. I'm going to place some spirit gum into a circle on the head. And again, just tap in that glue, making sure it's nice and tacky. Then as soon as I'm happy with that, I'm going to place my ball on and squish it in place like so. Then go back in with my spatula with some Vaseline. This time I want to start pinching down the edges so it makes almost like a bit of a volcano effect. So the middle is still going to be nice and built up, but the outer edges are nicely flattened down and pinched onto the natural skin. So you see how we have this kind of volcano effect. So it's still nice and full throughout the middle, but it's nicely softened down and blended at the edges. I'm going to go back in and use my finger now just to smooth out those edges, give it a lot more of a realistic skin effect. Again, keep blending this until you're happy with how it looks. So you want your bullet hole to look something like this before you start going in and sculpting into it. And again, we're going to repeat the step with the talcum powder now, making sure that we're mattifying all of the sticky residue from the Vaseline and the wax. So again, close those eyes and just patting on some of that powder, making sure it's all nicely mattified, and then sweeping away any excess powder. So now that my bump is looking a lot more realistic, a lot more skin-like, I'm going to go in with some of that red cream from the Mehron Bruise wheel again, and I'm just irritating the outside. So again, using a soft fluffy brush, just applying a small amount. And then we can move on again to the most fun bit. So for this next stage, I'm going to be taking a cotton bud, and you want to load up one of the fluffy sides of your cotton bud with some Vaseline. So you just want to take away all of that fluffy side and make sure that there's enough Vaseline on the end of the cotton bud. Then we're going to take the cotton bud with the Vaseline side and we're going to stick it right through and into the wax like so. So that's going to be obviously the hole where the bullet's gone in. Now I just want to slightly twist the cotton bud just to start releasing it. Again, if you go in and pull it straight away, you might risk the whole thing coming off. So I'm just going to twist it and slightly pull it out. Now we've got this lovely hole shape in the center of your wax. You can again push out the edges if you wanted to, just to make it a little bit more gory, a little bit more open, more like an exploded gun wound effect. And again, we're going to finish this off with a nice cool paint job. And there we have it. 2 different ways of using that nose and scar wax to create some really cool special effects looks. So you can either opt to go for the cuts, the bullet hole, or if you guys want to get a little bit more adventurous and create some of your own designs, I would love to see those as well. Thank you so much for watching today's tutorial. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you are all keeping nice and safe back home in Wales.